Greetings, friends. Today we're going to deal with Sarah's problem. Hi, Sarah, can you tell us what happened to you?
I don't know what to do, how to live. My son has always been a problem. He had a difficult pregnancy, and when he was a baby, he screamed all the time. He was sick all the time, and I could not put him in the garden until he was 3 years old. In the garden did not want to go to 6 years. They roared, and everyone complained about his behavior. Then he was not ready for school. Everyday remarks. Did not learn, did not understand learning, did not do anything, and did not listen to teachers. Until the age of 13, he was too mommy. Everything with me, it was impossible to bear. And after that, he dropped out of school altogether, started smoking and looking for street companies bad. Puberty and teenage rebellion began. Constant complaints from teachers, calls to the police. Every day, I don't know where he is less. Then I look for where he is, then I wait at home until midnight. He doesn't answer calls and messages, is rude, doesn't listen to anything and argues with everything. He is now 14 and a half. I am terrified, panicked, and stressed every day. I am so tired of it all. I don't have a normal life. I can't plan anything as I am always on call to go to school and services or to watch him. I am constantly scared for him and for myself.
Hello, Sarah. I want to express my support to you. I can feel how hard it is for you, how tired you are, and you are almost at the limit. Your letter sounds like a cry for help, and I really hope that my answer will help you to understand the situation better and see possible directions of your actions. From what you write, it sounds like the difficult pregnancy may have affected the fetal formation. The baby may have been born with neurological features that caused him to cry a lot in early childhood. Usually, when a newborn baby and then an infant cries constantly, an examination by a pediatrician and pediatric neurologist is recommended to rule out medical causes. And if they are, it is important to be under the supervision of a pediatric neurologist. Periodically do the necessary examinations and correct and compensate for certain neurological difficulties. I don't know if your son was under the care of a pediatric neurologist or not. The fact that he cried all the time is not his fault. He certainly wasn't doing it on purpose to annoy you. It's just that something was bothering him a lot. Children under the age of 3 do not need to attend preschool institutions. It is more important for them to have warm emotional contact with their mother. Another thing is that you would have wanted to give him to a kindergarten, but he was constantly sick. I can assume that during his first 3 years you, with him very tired, were not in the resource, perhaps angry at him for the fact that he cannot go to kindergarten like other children. The fact that he was often sick was also not his fault. He just had a weak immune system. Tears and reluctance to go to kindergarten indicates that your son was bad there. He could not get used to it. Maybe he had problems with other children. He could not make friends with anyone or could not play by the rules. He lacked social skills. Maybe he longed for you, or he was uncomfortable with the fact that he was made a lot of comments, scolded. If a child cries, he feels bad, but adults often forget about it. Children's crying makes them angry. They start making remarks to the child, demanding him to stop crying, shaming him for crying, threatening him with punishment. Crying is perceived as a nuisance. It is important for adults to remember that the child cries not out of spite, but out of despair, loneliness, resentment, injustice. The fact that your son's behavior was complained about suggests that he had internal psychological problems, and at that point he certainly needed the help of a child psychologist to figure out what was going on with him and how he could be helped. Behind the bad behavior of children are very often hidden deep problems. Distrust of the world, feelings of insecurity, stress, anxiety, resentment, anger at someone, jealousy. Sometimes it is difficult for parents to figure out how to help a child with such behavioral problems. In this case, it is better to contact a child psychologist, and he will help. It is also important to realize that the child lives, grows, and is formed not in a vacuum, but in the family and as a sponge absorbs all that he sees and hears daily around him. Watching adults, often behavioral and emotional problems in children, a mirror of what is happening in the family, in what state are adults most of the time, how they communicate with each other and with the child, how they usually behave during conflicts. All this, of course, affects the behavior and emotional background of the child. I am writing all this in order to help you see that your child from childhood was not easy to feel himself in society, to communicate with other children and adults. He had certain difficulties. He needed psychological help and correction. The fact that he behaved and felt this way in kindergarten was not his fault. Unfortunately, such children are often perceived as a problem, and instead of help, they receive a lot of remarks, reprimands, criticism, threats, and punishments. They are labeled a bully, a problem child, a brawler. I can assume that this happened to your child at daycare and then at school. When a child is constantly being reprimanded and scolded, he himself begins to feel stupid, not like everyone else, to feel that he is worse than others. This begins to strongly undermine his own opinion of himself and self-esteem. It turns out that behavioral and emotional problems in the child before school were not solved, and in school to everything else added intellectual load and even greater requirements to comply with certain rules. You write that your son was not ready for school, and then did not perform tasks, did not cope with the load, did not listen to teachers. Most likely, the very neurological difficulties and peculiarities of the nervous system, about which I wrote in the beginning, just made themselves known. It was difficult for him to concentrate attention. His fine motor skills and memory were not well developed as in other children. He could not quickly grasp the material. I think he had a very hard time. And again, it's not his fault. He didn't choose these problems for himself. They were his weaknesses, his deficits, which he needed help with to pull him up to higher tutors, to make him feel a sense of success, of progress, to help him see that he was a capable boy, that he was doing well. The fact that he was very attached to you until the age of 13 shows that he had a very great need for warmth, attention, acceptance, love, and support. You say that it was impossible to bear. I can assume, forgive me if I am wrong, that you were annoyed by his behavior and you may have pushed him away, telling him that he was a big and mature boy to find his own things to do. He probably received a lot of criticism both at school and from you. What is happening to the child now is the result of all the previous years of his life, your relationship with him and various psychological problems that were not solved in time, but only accumulated. It was very important for me in my answer to show you the way your son has passed from birth to today, from his point of view, so that you could understand him better and see the situation through his eyes. Put yourself in his shoes and think, what would he be happy about? Start doing that. What's important to him? What does he dream about? What does he listen to? What does he watch? Who does he socialize with? Can you invite some of his company over to your house? Let them hang out on his property so you have some control over what happens. In adolescence, it is already impossible to bring up children, to teach them what and how to do correctly. This will only cause irritation and rejection. The language of accusations, threats, and punishments also does not work with teenagers, only respectful dialogue. It is important to start building it. Offer also your son to talk to a teenage psychologist. And you are highly encouraged to take my course, my favorite teen. Get closer. Vika, I believe that it's never too late to start making changes. The most important thing for you now is not to demand that your son change, but to pay attention to what you yourself, first of all, can change in your communication with him and start doing it. I sincerely wish that your relationship with your son will improve. And that's the end of the video. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share with a friend. See you soon.